Hi everybody, Matt Lawton here. This is the Astrological Winds channel. I'm going to take a look at the Astrological Weather report for the week of October 4th through 10th. And once again, going with a chart on the screen for all of you folks who are on the YouTube for video. And here I am. I am here. How y'all doing? And I have the chart set up for the main event of this week. And that is a new moon in Libra, which we're going to get on Wednesday. And then we also have a couple other things I wanted to talk about. Venus is going to go into Sagittarius this week. And then also two of the long-term outer planets that have been retrograde for many months now are going to turn direct this week. So it's Pluto and Saturn are both stationing direct. So, but the main event of the week is this new moon in Libra, which happens on Wednesday morning, 7:05 Eastern time. I have the chart set here for Washington, D.C. Eastern time again. You can see it's at 14 degrees of Libra, this new moon, which is with the moon and sun are conjunct one another, which you can see right there. So the moon in Libra is really all about like wanting to create balance and harmony, especially through relationships. So usually it's a really sweet new moon. It really, the moon in Libra wants to when it's triggered and is feeling, its emotions like triggered and maybe feeling a little insecure or something, it wants to create a connection with other people. And, and if it feels like, other people are uncomfortable, it wants to talk it out. It wants to sit down and find some way of reestablishing balance and harmony in relationships. And in particular, in Libra's case, it's a lot about our partnerships, our closer, intimate relationships. Partnerships can also, they can be romantic, they can be business, they can be any kind of really one-on-one relationship that we have with others. So Libra is very interested in that kind of energy. It learns a lot about itself through relationships, through the mirror of relationships. And Libra is also about creating harmony and balance in our environment. So Libra really wants to go in and beautify surroundings. It's a really good ability to use shape and form and color together in harmonious ways and create harmony in the environment around us and the surroundings around us. It really enjoys beautiful things and artistic things, aesthetically pleasant things. So that's, so in Libra, is really, this peaceful, harmonious type of energy. And, so when that new moon is in Libra, that's what it's looking to establish. But this new moon really has a lot going on. And the first thing I want everyone to notice here is that Mars is right at the same degree, 14 degrees of Libra, as the sun and moon. So the Mars is conjunct this new moon, and it will be conjunct the sun basically all week. And the exact conjunction's Thursday, but it'll be in effect all week. You can see how close it is even now, Wednesday, and it will be in effect all this week. So when the sun and Mars get together, this can really upset the Libra apple cart of that balanced energy between you and others. The sun and Mars are the two most egotistical or self-driven, self-motivated planets. So, Mars, when it's in Libra, and I mentioned this a couple weeks ago when it went into Libra, is actually in a weak position traditionally. Mars is all about our actions, our motivations, wanting to move forward. And usually that's a very individualistic type of decision. And so Mars likes to operate singularly as an individual. And when it's in Libra, it can't do that. It has to take into consideration other people, other things, other decisions, things like that. So actually, when Mars gets into Libra, because of this other considerations it has to do, you know, and can be annoyed about that because it would really rather just have the complete control over its actions and motives than having to consider other things. That is what will slow down the Mars normal energy, so that you literally can kind of almost get indecisive about what it wants to do to move forward. But what's interesting about the Sun and Mars, when they get together like this in any sign, like I said, it's highly subjective, personal, even kind of like egotistical energy. And so like it really wants to be able to control its own life and just, you know, push things that it wants to do, Sun Mars. And anything that Sun Mars perceives as blocking it will trigger anger, will trigger irritation, will trigger frustration. So this is really counter to what the moon in Libra, new moon in Libra, normally works. It really, like, you know, really throws a wrench in to the ability to get along with others harmoniously, because it will seem like instead people are kind of blocking us from getting what we want. So it can, you know, so Mars and Libra can really, really get upset. And like, it's really interesting too, because, you know, Mars and Libra, you know, on one level, on a positive expression, is the peaceful warrior, is the one who is willing to fight for what your version of peace is, for balance and harmony. So there's that, and that's a really positive expression of that, you know. But the Mars and Libra, the negative part of that is really feeling like we can't really do what we want to do, that we're getting blocked somehow. And so that can feel like really angering and really getting to a point where, you know, where we can explode in anger. And actually, with Mars and Libra, we can end up creating new enemies instead, like if we can't control that energy. So this is like highly explosively potent energy, in the sense of anyone who feels like their actions are being blocked, and, you know, the things that they want to do, even their version of what justice and peace is being blocked. They're going to feel really, really upset this week, and it's going to be hard to try to like blend into that Libra energy when everyone is feeling like, oh, I can't really do exactly what I want to do. So this is like, you know, really a tough one. And you know, when Mars in Libra and Libra energy is being expressed positively, it can find that middle path. It can walk the middle path and be able to, you know, deal with the duality in relationships that runs through, you know, that Libra energy that goes from like being someone who's really tight and your ally to actually the connection being someone who's actually an open enemy. So like, it's a very, very interesting combination of energies here, because you have one energy that really wants to make that connection, and yet on another level, everyone inside is feeling like, you know, blocked and angry about not being able to do what they want to do. So it's going to be a little bit of a tricky thing. And there's even more going on. If you'll notice here too, there's our Mercury. Remember, Mercury is retrograde right now in Libra also. And notice too, it is also in this whole alignment where the new moon and the Sun and Mars are very close together in Libra. So it's also conjunct Mercury retrograde. And when you think about Mercury retrograde in the sense that, the inability to communicate as well, misinformation, things like that. When you throw in all this, it shows me that, what's happening is a lot of this blockage that, we're sensing, that Mars and Libra, and the anger and frustration that comes up from being blocked, it's also shutting down communications. Like, it's giving us an inability to really express verbally the frustration that we're feeling inside about a lot of this. So it really, to me, really kind of even plays into why the Mercury retrograde is acting as it is. And remember, when I talked about Mercury retrograde a lot last week in my blog, and you can go back to that and refer to that, in the sense that a lot of this Mercury retrograde, and communication issues may come from partnerships. And with Mars and Libra, that's showing that again, and that, like, maybe there's just so much, like, frustration and anger and indecision, and the things that, like, the negative part of Libra wrapped up in certain relationships, that you just can't express yourself right now verbally, that you just can't get to that point of being able to feel like you can honestly say the way that you're feeling, because you're still sorting out a lot of it. So I think a lot of this will be a lot of stewing inside, like, just like really mulling over a lot of that negative kind of energy that you're feeling blocked about, and just kind of like really, during the Mercury retrograde period, just really like holding a lot of that in ourselves, and kind of really looking at all these relationships and the things that we're in, and just trying to, like, sort it all out. What's interesting too, like, this is just such a potent new moon. You'll notice too, all the moon, sun, and Mars are all opposite Chiron. So once again, this is showing, the opposition is showing that relationships, close relationships, are bringing in a lot of, like, wounding and pain that we have to deal with right now, and that it can, like, really if we're not careful, we can end up getting in battles, one-on-one battles with others, that where we're wounding one another, where we're like causing each other pain. And so the better expression of that energy would be to look at that stuff openly and be like, yeah, there's these issues that have come up between us, but we really need to look at this in an open way and just try to deal with it ourselves. And it can be very hard, because everyone's going to be feeling that energy inside of, like, feeling like they're stuck and blocked, and they're looking to find some vessel to pour that anger into. So what we have to be careful of with the Libra energy is that we project it out onto other people, onto our partnerships and things like that. Now notice too, there's another thing going on. We're still not done with this new moon. This thing is really lighting up this chart. It's also hitting the Uranus Saturn square. And it's interesting with the Uranus part, and you can see here this green line going up to Uranus and Taurus. The Sun, Moon, and Mars are all exactly quincunx Uranus. So what does that mean? That means that basically the result of this intense energy, of not feeling like we can get what we want, of having to be delayed and stuck, and mainly because of maybe relationships that we're in, is gonna make us feel really rebellious. That's what this quincunx to the Moon, Mars, and the Sun will make us feel. This very, very individually rebellious energy, that any kind of rules that are being put on us, any kind of blockages, restrictions from others, from situations, circumstances, will just create this very rebellious, flippant attitude. It's almost kind of like putting the middle finger up at the rest of the world or anybody who we feel like, is bugging us, and telling them, just bug off. I don't want you in this, around. And actually, it's really interesting with the quincunx to Uranus, we can actually do things that we know are not even good for us and still do them anyway. It's kind of like we're just so caught up in a headstorm that, we may go and do some action that we're really going to regret pretty quickly. But this really, really shows this really rebellious energy. It can get very impulsive with its actions and just be really out of balance and create a lot of chaos around us, and just, really take up this really rebellious disposition that makes it really difficult. So we can have a lot of issues with authorities. People, authorities will sense this rebelliousness in us, so our superiors or anyone who has any authority over us, we may get into quick bursts of anger with them, and and they may feel very threatened by us at times, and then, and the thing too with Mars and Uranus too is it gives a lot of bursts of energy, but when it's in a quincunx, it's very awkward. So like that energy, even when you get the burst of it, can really, bring you off your trail and set you off in a way that's not good for you. And it may, you may even realize that and still not be able to hold on, to your temper, or making rash or impulsive decisions. But like I said, we can get these bursts, electrical bursts of energy from this too, where you can make a quick leap forward, but we can also set ourselves up for like accidents and and even stress our body out, where we can allow ourselves to bring in illness and stuff. So notice too though, this is the one nice thing going on in this, is going back to the Saturn, there's a nice trine to Saturn coming from the new moon and Mars, the sun there. So it is it's a wide trine, and I think here Saturn's about to station direct too in a few more days. So to me, this is saying anything that we get going now under this new moon, and we know new moon is a good time to start new things, although with Mercury retrograde, it's more like kind of making the planning to start new things rather than the action. But it shows that we can get into a really nice delivery of the energy. Like it can be a nice step-by-step build-up of something solid, and we can get ourselves really involved in it on emotional and personal levels with the Saturn and moon there, and really learn a lot from the experience. So like, my feeling is anything that we start new during this new moon it's going to probably take about 5 months or so, maybe even more, maybe 5 to 7 months to actually come to fruition. But like if we can stick to a step-by-step process and release the energy in a controlled way, we can actually learn a lot and build something up really stable. So, so there is that little out in this thing. And then what's interesting too, the ruler of this new moon is Venus down here in Scorpio. And it's interesting because it's getting really close to a conjunction with the South Node. And as you see here, this is the South Node. And so what that means to me is a lot of these issues are going to be, that are making us feel stuck during this new moon is once again going to have to do with relationships, like Libra says, and Venus being the planet of relationships, and really triggering some really intense energy because Venus is in Scorpio still and at the critical 29th degree. So we're really learning a lot about relationships. But the South Node shows that it's past, relationships from the past, that are the ones that are getting us stuck, are the ones that we may feel a lot of frustration and anger about, and or we may revolt against with this Mars and this quincunx of the new moon to Uranus. So close relationships from the past are really mainly a lot of the trigger in this. And with Venus at that 29th critical degree, it's like, have we learned our lessons? Or are we going to have to go back and relearn these lessons again until we get them right? So normally a really sweet new moon in Libra has really been turned into a very intense new moon, mainly because of that conjunction to the weak Mars, but also the very tight quincunx to the Uranus. And then you add in the conjunction to Mercury retrograde and the opposition to Chiron. And the whole big package is like, wow, holding in a lot of frustrating and angry feelings about, the way things are right now in our lives with other people, in our relationships, in our partnerships. Just feeling a lot of pain and frustration in those situations, and not really feeling like much can be done about it, and really copping on to this rebellious kind of attitude. So we have to be really careful with this new moon. And I really think, like I said, anything we do start is going to take months before it really comes to fruition. So we have to have that attitude of the step-by-step thing going on with all this. Now, notice too, and I'm also on Wednesday, you'll see here, there's a little S on it. That is the day that Pluto is stationing. That's what the S is for, direct. It's actually going to start moving forward again. So this is telling us that during this new moon, it is a turning point, but it's just the beginning of that turning point where we can start to take actions that ultimately will bring transformation into our lives. But it's going to be, once again, something that's probably going to take several months to really see the results of these things. Now, on Thursday, Venus, which you remember is right here, right at the end of Scorpio, just about at 29 degrees here on Wednesday. So on Thursday, Venus is going to move that final degree and head off into Sagittarius. And so when Venus gets into Sagittarius, it's really ready for some new adventures in relationships. It really wants to bring in its highest beliefs and standards into relationships. And it's a very extroverted sign for Venus to be in versus Scorpio. It's no longer going to be brooding within, but instead wants to go out and have some new fun experiences, and that, positive type experiences with other people. Now, the thing about Venus and Sagittarius, though, and Sagittarius in general, is it will run from, anyone who wants to possess it or hold it down in any way. So Venus and Sag is definitely one of those ones that the deeper emotions and stuff that it just went through with Scorpio is what it wants to get away from. It doesn't want to be dragged back down into these deep emotional things in relationships, and it will actually run from that, and it really wants to be able to have the freedom to choose how it wants to interact with others without having to take into regards other people's feelings or situations. So it's a very extroverted, positive Venus energy. And it can really inspire others. It's looking for new experiences with others, and is really just out there for fun loving and wanting to do that. So nice little switch there in the relationship zone, getting out of the heavy Scorpio energy that Venus has really a hard time with. Now, on Friday is the 5th and final exact hit of Pluto to Eris, and you can see 2418, 2420. So on Friday, you're going to get this exact final and 5th hit. Now, I have talked about this Pluto Eris square multiple times in the last few weeks on the blogs, including really going into it in detail last week again on the October monthly blog. So I'm not going to get into it again, but it is really the sign of the times, the chaos of the times. It's really concentrated now because the 4th and 5th hits were so close together. And the effects of this, even though the last exact square will go on for years to come, because these two move so slowly that they're going to be within orb of each other until basically Pluto goes into Aquarius in a couple more years. So like we're going to be feeling the effects of all the crazy stuff that's happened since January of 2020 when these two first got within orb. All the way through now, there's been so many crazy things that have gone on in the world. And now we're going to, for the next several years, we are going to feel the results or the consequences of a lot of those chaotic events. So that 5th and final exact hit is on Friday. Now, Saturday, Mercury retrograde and Mars get to the same position and conjunct one another. And to me, and at the same time, they semi-square Venus. So to me, that is basically a continuation of the new moon's energy of, just having a lot of, Mercury conjunct Mars is ornery words, really. It's just really when we're feeling a lot of anger inside and it comes out in our words. So Mercury retrograde, once again, we may choose to actually stew on it instead and keep it inside. But it's a very it's a time when our emotions really can dictate what we're thinking and seeing. And because this is such an emotionally tough week, with Mars and the Uranus and all that, it can be a very, very, once again, we'll continue that energy into the weekend of just feeling like easily triggered, being able to go off very quickly verbally on others, get into disputes and arguments. So, the best thing to do with Mars, Mercury energy like that is to really focus on some kind of intellectual paperwork, computer work thing that you can do solo and just really push that energy into it. Now, that same day on Saturday, the Sun and Mercury will also conjunct one another. And since Mercury is retrograde, we call that the inferior conjunction. And to me, this is literally the middle of the Mercury retrograde period when we are most internal, when we are most inside our own mind. And so when Sun conjuncts Mercury, it gives us a very subjective way of looking at things. Our thoughts, what we're into, our words are all coming from a subjective place. And in fact, a lot of times we tune out any kind of input unless it has something that's actually substantiating what that subjective position or thing that we're into at that time is. So really on this weekend next weekend coming up, we're going to really be deeply within ourselves and really mulling over a lot of these things. And there may be a point where we create a new beginning, where we look at it in a different way and change that energy, but it's still going to stay mainly inside. And even trying to express it or talk to others about it may end up being a lesson in futility, because with the Mercury retrograde and such a subjective position, it does not make communications with others an easy thing. And so lastly, on Sunday is when Saturn, which, you can see it's retrograde here, but it really is stationary too, just like Pluto. Saturn is going to go direct. And so once again, here we, when we think even about this new moon and the ability to start moving forward in a step-by-step process in the things that we want to create in this world for stability and long-term, something physical. But here, once we know, we talked about this so much in the last couple of years, Saturn in Aquarius wants to upgrade that system. So like this is going to be a time where we can start doing that. We're going to start moving forward with being able to put some of our new ideals or our higher ideals and values into our lives, into the structure of our lives, into the system of our lives. But it's going to be a slow process. Just start turning around now. So maybe a lot of these new moon ideas that we have now, which are mainly internal and should stay that way while Mercury is retrograde, will start to be planted and seeded forward when this Saturn is going direct, and we'll start taking the baby steps forward to actually get that into our reality. So it is a challenging week again, but like, internally we can really, get some new starts, but we have a lot of things we're going to have to work through, a lot of really, angry emotions about being blocked and the pain that causes, and then wanting to rebel against that, and maybe not even having good reasoning to do that. So really, this week I would say the best thing to do is to like really take this stuff in internally and really feel it out yourself. Try to keep your mouth shut for the most part, because you're probably going to end up just creating disputes by bringing out that kind of energy. And just, try to find a way of like taking that energy and turning it around inside first, so that you can start moving forward in these step-by-step directions into where you want your energy and your projects and the things that you're into to go to. But it's going to be difficult to do that, because that Uranus is going to want us to jump and jump and jump and give us bursts. So not the easiest week to navigate, and unfortunately our normally beautiful new moon in Libra is really going to be challenged to try to continue to portray this harmonious, balanced energy that Libra really, really wants. So like, we all, are, wanting to find what we consider balance and fairness and peace and harmony. And, it's really a time when we're all fighting for that, is what it comes down to. All right, this is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. It is on YouTube every week. Get an account on YouTube, and then become a follower, and then turn your notifications on, and you'll never miss the blog. The blog is also on all kinds of podcasts, although the last week or two I've definitely had some technical issues with that, Mercury retrograde kind of stuff. I am going to try to get better control of that situation, but try to, if you go onto any of your favorite blogs, just look up the Astrological Winds channel and you should be able to find it there. It's on over 15 different blogs, the most popular ones. It's being picked up all the time by others. So you do not need to see the video. You can just hear the audio that way. I'm also on Instagram. Look up Astrological Winds channel on Instagram. I post the link every week there. I do try to social media some of you guys, but there's hundreds of followers now, so I can't get to everyone. So you need to be a little self-responsible about this. All right, and also it is a free service. So the way you can pay me back is to please pass it on to anybody who you think be interested. Otherwise, there's the next best thing you can do for me is if you need a chart, if you know someone who needs a chart reading, a birth chart reading, predictive reading, which is looking at your weather report for the year like this, just personally for you. I have relationship readings, children's readings, elections for when you need the best timing to start something, horary questions if you really need to know the answer to something you can't quite get the answer to, children's charts, fixed star readings for deeper soul purpose, all those things, classes, lectures, article is available for all kinds of different astrological services. So the way to get in touch with me is through my email, mattHue823@gmail.com. That's mattHue823@gmail.com. And that's also my Zelle account, and my PayPal is Matthew Lawton, Lauten. Anyone, I know there's some of you out there who occasionally like to give a donation, or anybody who's feeling like they like to give a donation. That's another way you can get me, through PayPal or Zelle or Venmo that way. But like I said, please pass the blog on. That's the best way to pay me back. And if you need a reading, I've been doing readings professionally for close to 20 years, so I'd love to do that. And if you're interested in classes, same thing, just get in touch with me, mattHue823@gmail.com. All right, until next week, this is the Astrological Winds channel. This is Matt Lawton signing off. And, try to use this new moon and try to start something new inside you that you can work towards over the next few months in a step-by-step way.